Welcome to Stuff and Nonsense Journaling with Julie. Episode 8, Selfie Actualization, Part 2. I love drawing people. I've tried to draw my husband in every sketchbook I've had. I draw myself as well. It's very informative. You can learn a lot doing that. But you have to have like a mirror or something reflective. And all that's really hard to set up, so I only ever did that once in a while. I've done some portrait painting at festivals and fairs, though. I'm only so-so at it, mostly because I'm slow. I worked in Oktoberfest once and only got 6 portraits done, and I was there all day. I've seen other artists at work, and they're just so fast compared to me. Well, I hate disappointing people, so with modern tech, I thought I might be able to compensate a bit. At first, I would just snap a picture on my iPad and then draw from it. That way, especially with kids, they didn't have to suffer with sitting still so long. What's more, it was easier for them to watch the process because they didn't need to sit in front of me the whole time. They could stand behind me and see it unfold before their eyes, and that's always fun. With the iPad, I started making more self-portraits in my sketchbooks, and I kind of like that. Although, frankly, that didn't make me faster, but it was easier. But then I tried using one of those little projectors. I did a couple of selfies that way, and then I tried it out in a crowd, and it worked a treat. I could make a portrait in half the time, and people were quite pleased with the results. What's more, I could work really big and make a more impressive show of it, and that turned out to be pretty cool. I do a lot of instructional work, and I thought, this would be a great way to teach folk to make their own portraits. The standard way to teach portraiture is kind of lackluster. They always seem to want to do straight-on flat renderings that can sometimes make you wonder why you'd even make it. I know what these instructors are trying to do. When kids draw someone, they tend to make some pretty predictable mistakes, such as not giving their subjects enough forehead or laying a curly string across the top of someone's head to indicate hair, forgetting that, hair grows all around the sides and back. So instructors try to teach their students proportions, and they end up taking a lot of the life out of it. When I teach portrait making using iPads and projectors, sometimes the kids get pretty excited and they shout, "Cheaters portraits!" And I say, no, this isn't cheating. But they don't believe me. It really isn't, though. You can't tell me if Da Vinci or Rembrandt hadn't had an iPad and a projector, they wouldn't have used it. It just helps. In fact, it helps enormously. After making a few pictures this way, suddenly the kids find out how to do a ripping good portrait without a projector and a phone. You can truly learn how to make portraits on the spot and give them some real dynamism. We always have fun taking the selfies. You can keep it sort of simple, just have them make faces and try different angles, but maybe I get them to hop around and dance or strike silly poses. They'll play air guitar, make goofy gestures, whatever. Then you tape up some poster paper and you project it on the sheet. And you break out the Sharpies and have at it. I like to walk them through it the first time and point out how big their foreheads really are and how different eyes look from the side. See, part of why people mess up making a portrait is because they draw what they know rather than what they actually see in front of them. To illustrate this, I would make the kids try to pose themselves as if they were Egyptian figures. The head is in profile, but the eye is straight on. The shoulders are front-facing, but the hips and legs are sideways. Now, it wasn't that the Egyptians didn't know how to draw. They could. They did it because they weren't really drawing people so much as they were drawing symbols of people. And the eye is more characteristic face on, but the nose is more characteristic in profile. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, time for a demo. I took this selfie. I taped a piece of poster board up onto the wall, and then I dimmed the lights. I use regular Sharpies or Bic permanent markers, and I make myself a general outline. Most projectors are bright enough to be seen even with the lights on in the room, but it's sometimes nicer to turn the lights off so that you can get a really clear picture. I turn the lights on and off a couple times just to double check, make sure it looks the way I think it's going to look. And here's the final result of the preliminary outlines. Then I commence painting. I'm using acrylic paints here. I'm looking pretty pink there. I don't know about that. Oh well, and then I usually go back over it with more paints, colored pencils, markers, gel pens, anything I can get my hands on. Catch as catch can. I had an art teacher who told me with oils you work from dark to light, With watercolors, you work from light to dark, and with acrylics, you can work from the middle out. So that's kind of what I did. I just laid down some solid tones, and then I started putting in some shading and some highlighting. I keep going, laying on more and more colors, making it darker here, lighter there, until it starts to take shape, until it starts to look a little bit 3D. I try to keep these kinds of picture loose. If you're using canvas or masonite, it feels so permanent. Tossing out a quick picture like this on a piece of poster board feels very freeing. You can do whatever you want. If you blow it, just take another piece of poster board out and do it again. When I'm more or less satisfied with the skin tones, I can get on with the other colors. The shirt I was wearing in the picture has a kind of a complex, weird pattern on it, and I decided to just avoid that altogether and just make it some simple, bright colors. Once again, I just filled it in pretty solidly. I didn't bother to do any shading or anything. I just wanted the colors down in the right place. I kept the rainbowy colors at the base of the shirt because who doesn't love a rainbow? After getting the preliminary colors down to my satisfaction, I was able to go back and start sharpening up my colored pencils to get to work on the shading. I shaded the face first. It needed the most work. I always feel better once the pupils are colored in. You look more human that way. Then I could concentrate on shading all of the rest of it, getting shadows in the clothes, around the fingers, hands, putting folds in the clothes. When things start looking rounder and more three-dimensional, I can start thinking about what the other colors should look like. I decided to make, for instance, the background purple. Purple's my favorite color. And then I had to make my sweater black, and I had to think about what I wanted to do to make the texture something special. I decided what I'd do is I'd incorporate text again. I've done this in the past, and I really enjoy doing it. So what I thought I'd do was put some of my bad poetry on there. You know how some people are tone deaf so they can't appreciate music? Well, I'm like poetry deaf. When that woman did that beautiful poem at the inauguration, I was completely baffled. Everyone else was singing its praises, and I just have to trust people on that because it made no sense to me. I'm one of those people who likes a limerick. That's it. So what I did when I was asked to do a poetry craft with the kids was I made an altered book. I just took an old discarded book from the library and I pulled out the insides and put in a new one. And then I decorated each of the pages, putting in my junk poetry. And that was my poetry project. Everybody else could think about words and literature, and I could make it into an art project that was more fun and made more sense to me. But that's what I'll be writing on this painting. I'm going to take those silly poems that I wrote for the interior of this book, and I'm going to put them on the clothes and the background of the painting. I like lines and cross-hatching, so when I wanted to put in the shadows of my black sweater, I just used Sharpies and micron markers and that sort of thing. Gives it texture. I'll give you an example of my bad poetry. There once was a chipper librarian who was never a disciplinarian. She would joke on the job and laugh and hobnob and will till an octogenarian. I can't tell you how much trouble I got into for that poem. You can see what all my funny little poems look like on there. It's really fun. I think I might go back and finish up some more. But meanwhile, this is it. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you come back for more crafts and stories from the public library.